Have you ever felt the floor drop out from beneath your feet? That's exactly how I felt when I discovered my fiancé was still texting his ex. It was supposed to be a casual evening. We were planning our wedding, discussing guest lists and catering options, when a notification flashed on his phone. My heart sank when I saw her name. The question now is, what does this mean for us? Is it harmless nostalgia or something more sinister? I need to understand what's really going on before taking the next step in our lives. I'm a 29-year-old woman living in the suburbs, juggling a career as a graphic designer and planning a wedding. My fiancé, Mark, and I have been together for 4 years, engaged for one. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party, instantly clicking over shared interests in art and travel. Our relationship has always felt stable, grounded in mutual respect and communication. Or so I thought. This texting issue blindsided me. It started a couple of weeks ago when I first noticed his phone lighting up more often than usual. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it was work-related or a group chat with friends. Mark has always been transparent with me, and I've had no reason to doubt him. But last night, as we sat side by side on the couch, our future on the tip of our tongues, I saw the notification. Her name, Emily, appeared on his screen. My mind raced back to the stories he told me about her. A high school sweetheart, a first love, but he assured me they were ancient history. The initial shock quickly morphed into a knot of anxiety and suspicion. Why was she reaching out now? Why was he responding? Was it innocent, or was there something more beneath the surface? I felt a mix of emotions, confusion, fear, and a nagging doubt that wouldn't let go. As I sat there, questions swirling in my mind, I realized I needed to dig deeper to uncover the truth before I could move forward with our plans. This wasn't just about a wedding, it was about trust and the foundation of our future together. After that night on the couch, my mind was a whirlpool of uncertainty. I tried to shake it off, rationalizing that it might just be a friendly check-in. But over the next few days, I noticed Mark becoming more guarded with his phone, a device that used to lie casually around our apartment. It was subtle at first. He'd take it with him to the bathroom or flip it over when he sat down. Each small action felt like a tiny betrayal, chipping away at the trust I held dear. The first real curveball hit the following weekend. We were at a friend's birthday party, and I stepped away to get a drink. Returning, I saw Mark engrossed in his phone again, a slight frown creasing his forehead. I approached quietly, catching a glimpse of a long text thread with Emily. My heart pounded as I saw phrases like, "I miss those times," and "remember when we," flash across the screen. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I felt a surge of panic and anger. Later that night, I confronted him. My voice trembled as I asked why he was texting her, why he seemed so absorbed in their conversation. His reaction was defensive. He insisted it was nothing, just catching up with an old friend. But the dismissive tone and his reluctance to share more details only fueled my suspicions. Over the next week, things spiraled. Mark was distracted, often lost in thought. Our conversations grew tense, filled with unspoken questions and evasive answers. My anxiety turned into sleepless nights, my mind racing with what-ifs. I found myself checking his phone when he wasn't looking, something I'd never done before. It felt wrong, but the fear of betrayal was overwhelming. The situation worsened when Emily sent a package to our apartment. Mark opened it in front of me. A small box containing a mix CD, a relic from their past relationship, and a handwritten note. "Thought you'd enjoy a trip down memory lane," it read. This wasn't just a text thread anymore. It felt like she was trying to rekindle something. The knot in my stomach tightened as I watched Mark's reaction. He seemed torn, a hint of nostalgia softening his features. Frustration bubbled over. I felt sidelined, as if our plans for the future were being overshadowed by a past I couldn't compete with. The emotional strain was palpable, a constant undercurrent in our daily lives. It was as if a shadow had fallen over us, and I was grappling with the fear that I might lose everything we had built together. This wasn't just about Mark and Emily anymore. It was about the cracks that were appearing in our relationship and my growing fear that they might never mend. Determined to address the growing tension, I decided it was time to have an honest conversation with Mark. I approached him one evening after dinner, hoping to cut through the fog of misunderstanding that had settled over us. I expressed my feelings openly, explaining how the situation with Emily was affecting me. I wanted to rebuild our trust, to remind him of the bond we'd shared before these shadows crept in. Mark listened, his expression a mix of guilt and defensiveness. He admitted that the text had taken a nostalgic turn, but insisted there was nothing beyond that. He promised to scale back the communication, which was a relief, albeit a small one. I suggested we meet with a relationship counselor, hoping a neutral party could help us navigate this rough patch. He agreed, though reluctantly, sensing it might be what we needed to move forward. In the meantime, I confided in my best friend, Sarah, whose perspective I valued deeply. Over coffee, she advised me to focus on the bigger picture, our future. She suggested setting boundaries, not just for Mark, but also for myself, to manage the anxiety that had become an unwelcome companion. Just as I was starting to feel a glimmer of hope, life threw another curveball our way. Emily reached out to Mark with news that she was moving back to town for a new job. This development felt like a direct challenge to our fragile peace, a test of the promises Mark had made. It was as if the universe was daring us to confront the unresolved emotions head-on. The prospect of Emily being physically closer added a new layer of complexity. I feared the proximity might reignite old feelings or tempt Mark into reopening chapters best left closed. Despite his reassurances, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. As we scheduled our first counseling session, I grappled with doubts about whether it would be enough. Would Mark truly commit to us, or would the allure of nostalgia prove too strong? Each step forward seemed to be met with a step back, the path to resolution fraught with unforeseen challenges. Nevertheless, I remained committed to finding a way through this storm. I clung to the belief that our relationship, though bruised, was worth fighting for. In the face of uncertainty, my resolve to mend what was broken only strengthened, even as I braced myself for whatever lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the emotional toll of the situation began to manifest in all aspects of my life. I felt like I was living in a constant state of tension, my mind perpetually preoccupied with the what-ifs and uncertainties surrounding Mark and Emily. At work, my concentration wavered. Projects that used to excite me now felt like insurmountable tasks. My creativity, once a vibrant outlet, seemed stifled by the anxiety gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. Colleagues noticed my distraction, their concerned glances a reminder of how far I had drifted from my usual self. Socially, I began to withdraw. Invitations from friends were met with excuses as I struggled to muster the energy to engage with the outside world. Even gatherings that used to be a source of joy felt burdensome. It was easier to isolate myself than to face questions about the wedding or our future plans. Topics that had become minefields of uncertainty. Within the confines of our apartment, the atmosphere was charged with unspoken tension. Our interactions became increasingly strained, punctuated by silences that spoke volumes. Simple conversations turned into arguments as I grappled with feelings of betrayal and mistrust. I missed the ease of our past interactions, the laughter that once filled our home now replaced by an uneasy quiet. The internal conflict was relentless. Part of me clung to hope, the belief that we could navigate this storm and emerge stronger. Yet, another part was plagued by doubt, questioning whether I was holding on to a relationship that was slipping through my fingers. This duality left me feeling fragmented, torn between the past and an uncertain future. As the weight of these emotions pressed down on me, I experienced moments of hopelessness. The wedding plans that once symbolized a future filled with promise now felt like a looming deadline, a reminder of the unresolved issues that threatened to unravel everything. I often found myself lying awake at night, haunted by the fear of making the wrong choice, of investing in a future that might never come to pass. Despite these challenges, I knew I had to confront these feelings, to find a way to reconcile my hopes with the reality of our situation. It was a daunting task, but one I was determined to face, seeking strength in the belief that clarity would eventually emerge from the chaos. As the reality of our situation became increasingly undeniable, I found myself confronting the possibility of drastic measures. Despite our efforts, honest conversations, counseling sessions, and countless attempts to reconnect, the underlying tension remained unresolved. It was as if we were treading water, each day a struggle to stay afloat in a sea of doubt and mistrust. One night, as I lay awake next to Mark, I began to contemplate what seemed unthinkable just weeks ago. Calling off the wedding, the thought alone sent a chill down my spine. We had invested so much, emotionally, financially, and socially, into planning our future together. The invitations had been sent, deposits paid, and dreams shared with friends and family. Pulling the plug now felt like admitting defeat, a public acknowledgement of failure. Yet the alternative, continuing down this path without resolution, felt equally daunting. I worried about the long-term implications of ignoring the cracks in our foundation. Would we be able to build a life on shaky ground? Would resentment fester, slowly eroding the love and trust we once cherished? I wrestled with the fear of societal judgment, the whispers of gossip that might follow if we ended things. There was also the emotional toll of losing not just a partner, but a best friend, someone who had been my confidant and support for years. The thought of starting over was terrifying, a plunge into the unknown that I wasn't sure I had the strength to take. As I sat with these thoughts, I realized I was at a crossroads, torn between the comfort of familiarity and the potential for a healthier future, whatever that might look like. The decision felt monumental, a turning point that could redefine my life. In that moment of uncertainty, I understood that whatever path I chose, it would require courage, resilience, and a willingness to embrace change, even if it meant facing my deepest fears. As I sit here reflecting on the whirlwind of emotions and events that have unfolded, I find myself at a critical juncture, torn between the life I envisioned and the uncertainty that now clouds our future. Despite all the conversations, attempts at understanding, and personal reflections, I am left with lingering doubts about whether Mark and I can truly overcome this hurdle. The idea of calling off the wedding looms large, yet the thought of actually doing it is terrifying. I've always believed in the strength of our relationship, but this situation has challenged that belief in ways I never anticipated. I feel both vulnerable and resilient, caught between fear and hope, longing for clarity as I stand on the precipice of a major life decision. So here I am, reaching out to you all. Have any of you faced a similar situation where past relationships threaten to overshadow the present? How did you navigate the choppy waters of doubt and mistrust? What advice can you offer someone who is struggling to reconcile the love they feel with the fear of what might be lost? I'm hopeful that sharing my story will bring not only catharsis but also insight. Perhaps someone has walked this path before and found a way through, or maybe there's a perspective I haven't considered yet. Even if no immediate solutions present themselves, simply knowing that I'm not alone in this struggle would be a comfort. Thank you for listening and for any guidance you might offer on this journey.